So when glycation is impacting the brain, what would want someone who might be listening to this maybe
Hmm.
feel when that is happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to use the Harrison bowl of pasta before podcast example. Sound all right? So in our younger adult population, glucose spikes. The literature show that glucose spikes can impair our working memory and attention acutely. In fact, there's a lot of clear data now that show cognitive performance will dip measurably in the hours just after a high glycemic meal. But kids are kids. They're going to eat what they want. They're going to experience that for a few hours and then, oh, I'm back in normal. I'm ready to go. They'll just repeat that over their lifetime, which is unfortunate. So that's in the younger population. They'll see those cognitive deficits start to manifest. In midlife era, maybe 40 to 60 years of age or so, metabolic syndrome becomes much more common. And metabolic syndrome is recognized as a risk window for late life dementia. Maybe you don't have dementia at 40 or 45 or 50, but you're setting the stage because you're now insulin resistant and the damage is cumulative over time. Now let's look at older adults. In this case, age accumulation or glycation burden has spanned the lifespan, essentially. And that correlates in the older population with hippocampus atrophy, starts to get smaller, processing speed declines, executive function is lost. These are true hallmarks of dementia. So anyone listening today would appreciate their mind is really a metabolic mind. A metabolic mind doesn't decline suddenly with old age. You don't wake up at 67 and have dementia, whereas the day before you didn't. It is not a sudden decline. It's a slow burn. It's a slow process that starts decades earlier. And that's what's happening in the brain. And many are appreciating that phenomenon more and more all the time.
How can somebody know if their brain is deteriorating or if they're at more risk of dementia because of their diet? Like, is there a test for that? And also, how can you is there any way of reversing the damage?
Yeah, for sure. So there is no brain test for glycation while living. So it's best to stay alive. Don't test that. But again, this window, this proxy measure is the glycation score that you get on your blood. If you chronically go to physicals, as we all should do yearly or so, and you're seeing that number creep up and up, it's taking a toll on a lot of tissues, brain tissue included in that story. So we're resilient. We're going to say, oh, that little brain fog that I had is just something I'm going through. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to have some caffeine maybe and don't recognize it for what it really is, but that underlying damage is slowly taking a toll, and there are things we can do to slow it down or to reverse aspects of glycation. Remember, there's a race toward the end, and that race is full of glycation. It's not whether or not glycation is happening, it's the rate at which it happens. And there are lots of ways to see that in the population. So let's talk about maybe some tissues. You want to do that? We talked about the brain and
Yeah.
hemoglobin. Another very common example is in our eyes, where glycation has an effect. In our eyes, there are two main compartments. The front part is the lens. The lens is made up of really long-lived proteins called crystalline proteins. And when they become glycated, when sugar is in excess for too long, those glycated crystalline proteins start to get more opaque, darker as opposed to more translucent. And those opacities will lead to cataracts. It's no surprise then that cataracts are an ailment of the older population after a lifetime of accumulated glycation products. So that's one compartment. In the eyes, in the back is where the retina is, and proteins in that area, they're just retinal proteins, will also become glycated and deteriorate over time. They just don't work as well, and that's the cause of blindness long term. You don't get it overnight, but blindness again is implicated among the elderly after a lifetime of accumulating sugar-based damage like glycation. So that's one example, the eyes. Another one is in the skin and the bones. And what's key in those tissues is collagen. Collagen is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's the structural protein in our skin. It's in joint cartilage, but it's also in the brain and the heart. It's everywhere. And glycation is very common among collagens as well. In the skin area, you'll lead to skin fragmentation, deterioration. That, Harrison, are the wrinkles that you start to see. It starts to thin out. And you've probably seen people that on the surface, they look a lot older than they are chronologically in their age. That's a toll of glycation. So you get wrinkles, you get spots, you get thinning skin, flaccid skin over time, and that's because the collagen and the elastin in this case are glycated. Another aspect is slower wound healing, right? Folks have slower wound healing as they age because collagen is not as defined based on the glycation burden. So we all know that diabetics, for instance, have a hard time healing wounds, and that's no surprise now because glucose dysregulation leading to glycation is compromising that effect as well. About 70% of the mass of our joints is collagen. And when that collagen is glycated, it gets stiff, it gets brittle, it breaks down. Bone on bone arthritis is right around the corner. So those things don't happen overnight in a non-genetic sense. They happen in a cumulative effect when glycation runs its course. What about antibodies? Let me mention that for a moment. Antibodies, everybody knows what those are. Those are the immunoglobulins. They are the things that recognize viruses and bacteria and basically eradicate any invader. Antibodies are also prone to glycation. And when you have that, I promise the antibodies will still work as they're designed. They'll still find the bad guys, we hope, but they don't do it as well. And that's why people might become sicker for longer periods of time and more frequently. That's a lot of the literature is kind of showing that direction in the research right now.
So there's really, so there's really no positive impact of too much sugar. I mean, how would someone listening to this might be thinking, shit, I've been eating, I just had a Mars bar, I had Cocoa Pops for breakfast, I had a pizza for lunch. How can they begin? Because you said it was cumulative, right? So how can they begin to reverse or at least stop any more damage?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. So first off, what I'd like to do is encourage people to harness the power that they've already been born with. There are some elegant defense systems that we have to combat glycating agents before they can lead to lasting damage. Now, does that change what glycation did to us 2 years ago? No, it doesn't, but there are ways in which we can slowly start to attack those in our past via autophagy, and we'll cover that again in a moment. So inside virtually every cell in our bodies, there are two really cool enzymes called glyoxylase 1 and glyoxylase 2. This is commonly referred to as our glyoxylase system. Those two enzymes have a primary function of neutralizing reactive molecules called dicarbonyls. Those are molecules that are intermediates in the pathway of glycation. And we're doing that all the time. The most important dicarbonyl is called methylglyoxal. It is a very potent glycating agent that forms spontaneously, annoyingly, in normal glucose metabolism. So again, we use glucose for energy. We're getting ATP in the end, but one of the intermediates is methylglyoxal. This is sobering. Methylglyoxal is 40,000 times more reactive than glucose itself. So this is a true bad guy. But no worries, we have baked in this wonderful glyoxylase system that eradicates them really well. If you don't address methylglyoxal, it'll rapidly glycate proteins all over the body. Glyoxylase 1 is the best. It intercepts methylglyoxal early, destroys it, and basically converts it into D-lactate. So you generate lactate all the time, and part of that is the methylglyoxal that's being addressed. So that's one system. But I might mention this, that methylglyoxal eradication by glyoxylase 1 is made much more effective with a cofactor called glutathione. Cofactors are basically little helpers that attach onto proteins and allow them to do their job much more effectively. And where do you get glutathione? Well, that's an oxidative stress relieving agent. It's an antioxidant. So if your audience eats more polyol-based foods, they've got those types of agents. Some people might even like to supplement with selenium or alpha-lipoic acid. Anything that brings your oxidative stress down will at the same time help glyoxylase to eradicate glycation going forward. Your burden will be slower, not reversed, but your march toward old age will take Harrison about 150 years to get there, where some it'll only take 70 years.
If you guys enjoyed that clip, please do me a huge favor before you go and head over to our Into the Mind podcast official page where we have the raw, uncut Into the Mind podcast, and hit that subscribe button. And the more subscribers we get, the more incredible guests we can get on the show. I really appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. And I'll see you all real soon.